Hello and welcome to the Capital Games Podcast. I'm the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. Pretty light week this week, wouldn't you
Oh,
say?
yeah.
Um, as light as it was, there was one major event that happened this week, and we're just going to get right down to it since I don't think either of us were playing anything new or exciting this week. EVO is this week. And that is the Evolution Fighting Game Tournament that happens every year around this time. It is EVO is now a Sony-owned subsidiary, correct? Am I right on that? Right.
Yeah, Sony ended up buying them up after the whole controversy of Mr. Wizard sexually abusing a very, very, very underage tournament participant back during the early foundings of EVO, apparently. So, yeah, it was a nuclear time for EVO because you had commentators dropping out back in 2020 and just everyone was just like, yeah, I can in good conscience commentate for a tournament that's got a sexual abuse problem in its past and whatever. And to dogpile on top of that, the Super Smash Brothers community, they were going through their own sort of controversy too, where you had a bunch of the major tournament officials and also famous commentators who were sexually grooming younger participants. In particular, one of the ones that I think got just things really spotlighted in a bad light was commentator Senpai, and she was apparently sexually grooming a 14-year-old boy, and just that was bad because she got major spotlighting, I think, in 2019 or 2018, doing commentary on one of the Super Smash Brothers finals. So that sort of tore that community apart, and just it was just a mess in general. So yeah, that's the only reason why Sony has their hand in it, because just the EVO group were just like, well, shit. Our organization's falling apart. We might need an exit plan.
Yeah. God, man, that's a nasty story.
Yeah.
But that led to EVO. EVO didn't have a tournament last year, or did they have it only online? Because I remember them taking a few years off after all that, right?
Well, in 2020, they basically, I guess, canceled things because it was going to be an online series due to the pandemic starting to kick off and everything. But after all the controversy that was just flaring up and everything, there was no tournament that year. And then in 2021, they had returned to an online-only format. But I think even that had its issues with rumors that some people were having friends or other competitors smurf around or something. So, but I'm not too sure because I honestly can't even remember EVO 2021 too great.
Yeah. So basically, this is a return to form after being off on the past couple years, and from what I've gathered, I watched a little bit of it, but it looked like it was back to, I guess, what it was before the controversies. Lots of people who were in the Mandalay Bay and Las Vegas. It looked like it was really crowded. People were hyped being there, and it turned out to be a good tournament. We don't normally cover a pro tournament, but we're covering EVO specifically because it is essentially a mini E3 for fighting games, essentially. So a lot of announcements happen, a lot of things are talked about throughout the tournament, and some interesting things were talked about in the EVO tournament. Some things were teased, such as Tekken 8. We're not sure if that's confirmed or not, but it seems like they teased that it's coming. What else, really?
Really, I want to say just I know
Fatal Fury?
well, to sort of kick things off, Skullgirls did announce that their final character, Marie, is coming out soon. So she got sort of a teaser trailer, which naturally made the Skullgirls community just oh so happy.
Yeah.
So there was that.
hmm But they also announced they also announced that there's going to be a new Garrow or Fatal Fury game coming, which as it's just been after 23 years, right? There's been a new Garrow, so
Yep.
that's
Because the last one was in 1999, Garrow Mark of the Wolves
right.
on Dreamcast, I think.
Wow, yes, that was. That's a rare game to get right now. So yes,
Yeah.
that is right. Okay, because I remember playing it when it was on Xbox Live. That's when I first played it. So yeah,
Yep.
okay. Again, normally this isn't something we really talk about because unless it's a big announcements that will have a profound effect on the industry, we just kind of don't cover it really. But we're covering this for one reason. A lot of games announce something that they all have in common with. And Zero, what is it that a lot of these games announced at EVO this year?
Um, Rollback was announced for Samurai Showdown, uh, Dragon Ball Fighters,
Yep.
and uh, not quite Rollback, but somewhat, I guess, Rollback adjacent is King of Fighters 15 will be getting crossplay
hmm
in early 2023.
Right. And for those of you who don't know what rollback is, it's a type of net code where it drastically improves the online experience for people playing these fighting games. Usually it's delayed based, right? Where I guess they go back if something happens within the connection, they go back maybe 5 or 6 frames in the
Well,
past.
to,
Go ahead and explain it.
to explain it, so delay-based netcode, which is the norm in a lot of games, is where it 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 tries to read the inputs as fast as it can, but if one participant is delayed and their action is significantly different than the game state, then the game will just literally delay itself back to the point where things got completely skewed off the rails.
Yeah.
And this is bad for fighting games because if if the if the person who has the worst latency has significant delay, then that could mean you could have a completely different play state on the whole situation. One of the worst examples of delay-based netcode was the original release of Killer Instinct back on Xbox One in 2013. Um, the code was so bad that you had cases where people got completely desynced from
Mm.
how bad the netcode was. So you would have one person who was playing a completely different state, they would win the match, but yet you would have the other player that was technically the loser, but they had a much worse latency and they were playing a completely different game, but in their version of the game, they won.
Yeah.
So it was completely terrible. And it was from that point on, everyone was just like, yeah, we have to demand better from the fighting game community. We have to demand that games go with rollback. And that's where this whole rollback movement sort of started.
Right.
And rollback is different, where the rollback system is where you have a adjudication server that basically tries to make advanced predictions of the game state. And if the predictions are correct, the game just proceeds on as normal. Now, if there's a state where things are predicted incorrectly, at that point it will roll back the state of the game to where things got completely desynced and then continue on. And
Ah.
typically, when that happens, it's not a significant rollback. It's maybe just a couple frames. It's just like, oh, shit, our judging server predicted wrong. Let's roll the game back 5 frames to where things got messed up, and we'll continue from there.
Mm.
And typically, with 5 frames, it's so minute that most people won't notice it. Most people who play fighting games will, though, but at that point, 5 frames is not significantly jarring.
Basically, this implementation is going to drastically improve the online. Now, most would think that they would implement this on, let's say, a newer title, let's say King of Fighters, that just came out and is still selling battle pass, still selling season passes. The thing that happened at EVO is they announced it for 2 games that are essentially what they call feature complete. These are games that are not having new DLC. They're not going to get new income off of it. They just announced the implementation, which is going to come in like 2023 for, I think, both games, that essentially is going to drastically improve the gameplay for free, essentially. So
Yeah, and
go
what
ahead.
makes it really interesting is for the Dragon Ball Fighters announcement, you had the literal producer of the game. Her name is Tomoko Hiroki. She literally came on stage and basically said, "There will be no further DLC coming." The literal last character for Dragon Ball Fighters was um, Android 21 in her lab coat. And we will no longer be doing any further balance changes either. So the game is literally not seeing any further balance changes nor DLC. So
Right.
no maintenance, no extra monetization, literally 100% done.
Right. So a lot of I certainly thought that they wouldn't bother with those games, do that with those games if they're not going to get more money. And a lot of people thought that. So that's why this was really a big surprise that they are putting more money down to improve the netcode, which I want to get your take on this. Why do you think they decided to go to these now complete games and drastically improve the online like this when they're not going to get any more money to come afterwards?
As far as Samurai Showdown's case, my presumption is that SNK's business is literally fighting games at this point. They have a couple of mobile games that they are running and things like that, and I have not looked into their mobile game numbers, so I can't really exactly comment on that. But um, I can say that just they are owned by a majority stakeholder that is Chinese, and this particular Chinese stakeholder is a real big fan of their fighting games.
Mm-hmm.
So my presumption is maybe they're trying to sort of turn the tide on the opinion of their games to appease their stakeholder. So that's mere speculation for me. I can't say that's 100% accurate or not, so don't quote me on that.
Okay. My essential take was that when I heard it and I thought about it was, oh, they're planning on continuing these franchises, but they're not going to have a new game yet until maybe at the very least 2 years from now, maybe more. So they just basically said, well, we want to have a good mindset for players when we announce the new game. So why don't we this is why they implement it, because the problem with both Dragon Ball Fighters and with especially Samurai Showdown was the netcode was trash. It was terrible. Like I used to play Dragon Ball, not seriously, but a lot. I played it a lot online, and always would have problems. Like no matter what. Like either a lot of skipping, a lot of issues playing the game. So when that was announced, to me it was like, oh, you're trying to rebuild the brand so people think of it fondly when the new game comes out, and it's a good idea, because when people essentially are going to remember your game by is, oh, but that had terrible online, and then you announce, oh, it's going to have rollback, the first thing you're going to think is, okay, wait until it comes out, and then if it's good, then I'll buy it. Which, for a lot of people, is essentially they're not going to buy it, essentially. So if they do it for the old games now, and it turns out to be very good, then it's going to be in their heads when they go to purchase the game later, is, oh, wait, they improved the netcode drastically. I played it; it was great, so I don't have to worry about that. So, and I like the game, so yeah, I'll definitely buy it, and that's it. I think that is essentially what the business plan is. They're putting a little more money into the old games now, so when it comes time for that sequel, then they're going to go ahead, and then it's going to be positive vibes onto the sequel that will probably mean more sales to them. Is my opinion of what I think the mentality of it was.
Yeah, so and that's likely a fair thought too, because one of the things that Hiroki-san had alluded to in her announcement about rollback coming to Dragon Ball Fighters is that the feature will not be coming to PS4 and Xbox One, but for players on those particular platforms, there would be an upgrade path.
Right.
So my thought is that while the game is feature complete, it sounds like that they're prepping for a, um, I guess, complete edition that will be eventually be coming to um, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X.
Right.
And for anyone worrying about the PC side of the argument, you don't have to worry about it because uh, PC players will be getting this as a digital update, but here's the fun part. Um, for PC players, you'll have the choice between going to the delay version by, I'm assuming, just a beta tab switch in Steam, or you can just proceed with the brand new rollback version. So if you're sadistic enough to put yourself through the horrors of playing the delay-based version, then yeah, sure, knock yourself out.
That makes no sense. Why would you do that? But okay, sure. Yeah, that's cool, I guess. But yeah, like this is brand management essentially. It's basically we want everyone to have a positive feeling when we announce the new game, and that essentially is it. I don't think they're gonna. A lot of people started thinking, oh, they're gonna do this, and then a little on down the road, they're gonna announce new DLC for these games, which I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
I think
especially with Dragon Ball Fighters, because um, people tend to forget that while Arc System Works did develop the game, they are not the IP holders. The
no.
IP holders are Toei Animation and Bird Studios. And for those who need a little bit of a history lesson, both Toei Animation Studios and Bird Studios, they are notorious on being very miserly and very cheap.
Hmm.
So to even get the budget to get rollback added, that was probably stratospheric.
Hmm.
So to think that there are more characters on the horizon, that's that's stretching a little bit much, and especially with the fact of how cheap both Toei Animation and Bird Studios are. So, I mean, it was I couldn't imagine further asking for money after going, hey, so can we get more money to do this rollback thing? And then coming back and turning around and going, hey, so can we also get, more money and your permission to add these following characters?
Yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. So yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, this essentially, like I said, this is pure brand management. They want to have a positive outlook for when the new game comes out, so people will know that hey, the online will be just fine when the new game comes out. So here you go. Don't even worry about it, and that's it. I think that's my opinion on it. But this is great news because this also, in my opinion, this also pretty much gives no excuse to any other developer who's developing fighting games to not have rollback netcode. Like if you're having older games that are feature complete, that are not selling DLC or not seeing DLC, and they are turning around on their old games, putting in new netcode, and seeing this as a requirement, there really is no excuse anymore to be a fighting game maker and not have rollback. Because then
Well,
at that point, if good,
the funny thing about SNK is the fact that they've been working with Code Mystics for a long time,
that's right.
retrofitting rollback into some of their older games. Hell, two of their old releases that recently got ports to modern day PCs, PS4, and Xbox One are basically King of Fighters 98 and King of Fighters 2002 Ultimate Match.
Hmm.
They recently got netcode updates to get rollback, which is insane because you have to consider this. Just King of Fighters 1998. Just not not many normal people would run to a game like that. And same for Ultimate Match 2002.
Yeah.
No one's flocking to that, but yet here's SNK going, yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and just improve the netcode on these old games, and let's work with our longtime partner Code Mystics to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and to kind of your point of just no game should really avoid the rollback netcode topic. There was one big loser during the EVO announcements,
Grand
and
Blue.
yes,
Yeah.
and what makes it even more ironic is the fact that with with Grand Blue not getting a rollback announcement, they seem to have forgotten what happened during last year while the COVID lockdowns were going on. They had a tournament series, which was sponsored by Psy Games, who is the IP owner of the Grand Blue Fantasy IP. And during these online remote only tournaments that were going on, their tournament scene nearly collapsed on itself because just you had some of these matches that were just outright awful. Just tons of teleporting, tons of jumping of the frames and everything, and just straight out bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you can't have professional tournaments when the netcode is that bad because
Oh yeah,
it should just be here are these two people. They are gonna do their best, and whoever wins wins. And there shouldn't be a question as to why, unless one of them cheated. But then when you add
yeah,
the element of bad netcode, it not only is unfair to the competitors, it's unfair to the people who are watching it too, because then they're sitting there going, "Oh, are we sure that the X person won? We don't know if the netcode screwed up at that point." So it's terrible. So yeah.
yeah. And it gets even further funny because while this was happening with Grand Blue, the same thing also happened with Samurai Showdown. It just I remember one major match for or Samurai Showdown got so bad that basically both competitors for this particular tournament that were in the top eight, they literally just forfeited. They just said, "We refuse to play this. We're
Mm.
not doing this. This is bad." And here we are, just a year later. SNK has learned its lesson and has said, "Hey, rollback is coming to Samurai Showdown." But this is where it gets really ironic for Grand Blue. So during it was either before or after the Grand Blue top eight, they put out like a giant sort of PR video, and PR video talks about the third person action game that was partly developed by Platinum Games, and Platinum Games has stepped away from this, and they're just like, oh yeah, the game's running great and everything. And of course, everyone was just kind of paying attention to this PR video going, please, dear God, announce rollback. Please, dear God, announce rollback. And instead of getting that rollback announcement, what they get? An announcement that Psy Games is going to be sponsoring a new tournament series that's going to be focused on playing matches online.
Oh God.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, with Evo, the principal announcement I think that we should get across, and what I guess should be discussed in this, is basically that it looks like the fighting game industry is finally realizing the importance of rollback, and that it has to be implemented in all their games in order for it to succeed. I will say as a side note, for SNK for King of Fighters 15, good God, fix your matchmaking. I
Yeah.
want to play your game. I do. But if the matchmaking is still screwed after 6 months, I don't care if you put crossplay in there. If matchmaking sucks, it's not worth playing. So I hope they fix that. So yeah.
Yeah, and it especially burns me too because um, from what I've been reading for King of Fighters 15, just playing local matches just on the same console. Apparently, the game's super solid, just really good, really fun, and just extremely solid.
Mhm.
But the minute you try to sit yourself down to do some just random matches, some matchups take almost 30 minutes to connect.
Yep.
And then the worst part is, let's say you want to run a private lobby with you and your friends, it could take thirty minutes to an hour for you and your friends to connect to a private lobby that you've set up.
Yeah. It's awful.
And yeah, and it's a total bummer too because I believe for the Xbox Live Gold promo deals that are going on this week, uh, Microsoft has King of Fighters 15 discounted pretty hard. That the base game you can get it for I think about $37, and then for the deluxe edition with Season Pass number 1, that's a grand total of like $51.
Mm.
And as a longtime King of Fighters fan, part of me is almost, keyword almost, just itching to throw down the cash and go, well, they've announced that crossplay's coming. Maybe I'll throw down cash and just say, all right, you've got crossplay coming. Maybe by that point you'll also get matchmaking fixed, but also I've seen some commentary from the King of Fighters community going, well, you might want to prepare your clown makeup because for all we know, just crossplay comes out and it'll be something of a no-brainer surprise of, oh, by the way, we didn't fix the matchmaking, so it's still terrible.
Yeah. That is what I'm worried about. Like, for them not to even talk about that issue, but say, hey, this is coming. Like, yeah, great. But if matchmaking is not working, then it really does not matter. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it looks like fighting game companies are essentially putting more money down on their infrastructure to improve their games online, which is great, and it's gonna do wonders for the fighting game community and fighting games in general, especially if they decide to make more of their games free to play, so more people can play them. So
yeah, and to kind of round off some of the announcements, you had Melty Blood Type Lumina. They announced pretty much their plans going forward. The game is getting a major rework, and one of the big complaints was that with the shield mechanic was just busted or overpowered. So they're changing it so the shield mechanic is now a high risk, high reward thing. But sort of the fun side of things is one of the DLC characters they announced was Neko Arc, which is a cartoon cat version of one of the main characters for the primary roster of characters, and it was kind of one of those things that just no one expected this particular character to show up
yeah,
until maybe close to the end of the DLC run. But the the character was revealed, and of course the crowd sort of lost their mind, and of course it's also reflected on the recent Steam reviews too, because I can't tell you how many comments I've seen in Type Lumina's recent Steam reviews going, "Yeah, I bought this because Neko Arc," and then to kind of tie in with the whole Fate universe, Mash Curie Light from Fate Grand Order, she joins the roster as well too, and both of these characters will arrive during their major update patch sometime later on this year. And then another game that has been seeing a lot of popularity has been Guilty Gear Strive, and towards this fall they'll be getting a crossplay update, which will allow PC, PS4, PS5 to finally group together and play together. And that game has particularly fantastic netcode as well too. So having crossplay with fantastic netcode is a great way to keep the community alive.
So let's move on to our next topic. So Zero, this past May, it was announced that Square Enix is selling off 3 of their studios. One was Eidos Montreal, and I think the other 2 were another Eidos studio and Square Enix studio in North America. And a lot of people were speculating that this was because they wanted to concentrate more on their Japanese gaming side, so they can develop that more and put more money into that. Well, that seemingly is being confirmed from an announcement that on a conference call that Square Enix had this past week, where they're looking to sell stakes in some of their studios, or not only just sell stakes, but also have joint partnerships and ventures in some of the studios that they have right now. Nothing has been confirmed. It is still kind of speculative, but just by the way the call went, this is where they're going towards right now. So basically, if the studios aren't purebred Japanese studios, they're looking to sell stakes and have joint venture partnerships, so they don't have to invest more money into these studios. Zero, what did you think about the announcement that Square Enix is looking to sell parts of their studios out or have venture capital partnerships with other companies for these studios?
When I saw the news announcement, the first thing I thought of was the studio behind Life is Strange, because they were one of the few Western studios that was not sold during the whole Square Enix Montreal, Crystal Dynamics, and Eidos sell-off.
Yeah.
So that was my thought. I was just like, oh yeah, they're going to say, hey, just yeah, we've got the side studio. They make the award-winning in Life is Strange. Yeah, you want some good visual novel, slice of life sort of games, then yeah, just you need to toss money at them and tell them what you want done, and that'll be a great way to get things going. And so that was thought number 1 that I had. Thought number 2 was, oh yeah, this sounds like they're trying to really lean out their operations and just go real hard into the whole we love our purely Japanese studios, because I know another rumor that had been floating around for a while now, since this whole Western studio sell-off, has been that Square Enix is trying to make themselves look great, fit and trim for maybe being purchased up by Sony. And
Yeah.
even now, that rumor is still going completely wild.
See, if that were the case, like I'm a little like hesitant on saying that's a possibility now, because if that were the case, they would just sell off these studios from China and from other groups in other areas, because that would be the way to make you more I'd say attractive for acquisition. But they're willing to, but them selling stakes on these studios, basically saying, hey, you can have a 20% ownership of X studio, which companies like Tencent and Sony are very interested in doing, apparently. At that point, I don't know why Sony would then turn around buy Square Enix if then other companies are going to have control, or not even just control, but will have a financial stake in those other studios that Square Enix has. So, like, if this was a sell-off, I would agree with you and be like, yeah, they want to be acquired, like, and fairly soon. But I think just with what they're doing now, it makes it a little less of an attractive offer. Because if you want to buy a studio, like, straight up, you want total control, to have total financial incentive to keep them. You don't want to share in that. So if that really is the case, I don't know why they would just sell the studios off entirely. Unless they're saying this now as a way to say, hey, we're not selling you off. We're just going to, get more money in there in different means. But in reality, they are selling them off. that's my kind of feeling of it, really. Like I
Yeah,
don't. Yeah.
I would say it's maybe kind of like a little trial run before they sell off any of the few Western studios that they do have.
Mm,
So just kind of a hey, you can have the guys behind the award-winning Life is Strange games to develop your thing, and then just whoever invests in the studio gets a quality piece of work, and they're just like, oh man, we love these guys. We'd love to just have them full time as ours, and then just Square Enix to kind of rapidly turn around and go, oh, so you're interested, are we? Okay,
mm.
so how about we sell? And then just boom, that studio gets sold off, and they get to lean themselves up for the market. I don't know. That's probably wild speculation on my part.
Yeah. I mean, the Life is Strange series has actually sold pretty well. The first one sold about 1.2 million. It looks like it sold 1.2 million copies. And to Square Enix, that sold extremely strong. They said. The second one was considered financially successful, I should say. Although these are small studios and they're small games, yeah, they make quality enough games where people are interested. The question I would have is then with something like the Life is Strange studio. I don't know what the studio's name is. Oh, it's Don't Nod Entertainment. Um, my question would be, are people going to want stakes in that company to make more Life is Strange? I don't think that's what they would do. I think they would, let's say, I don't know, let's say Sony buys them, okay, or buys a stake in Don't Nod, and whether or not they have controlling interest is debatable. But let's say they say, okay, make a Last of Us version of what you do on Life is Strange. Is that what they would do? Is that what the company would be told to do? And that's the other thing that just dawned on me too. This made no mention if they want to sell controlling shares. So if they want to
Right.
give up a large amount of the studio, so another company can control them, and they'll just reap the profits of what that company does. That also is a possibility in this. So yeah, we don't have a lot of information in regards to what exactly the ideas that they're coming up with is, but to me, it kind of sounds like that. I don't know, like it sounds more along the lines of that Square Enix probably wants to get their hands on other companies and other IPs to boost their credibility in a sort of way without, I don't know, having a lot of lucrative partnerships or buying a lot of studios. It doesn't look like they want to be a super studio like EA or Ubisoft. They want to be a smaller studio. All right, so we will move on from there. Another talk of finances and acquisition this week. It looks as if Tencent is looking to buy Ubisoft. Basically, we've talked about this in other episodes. Ubisoft is not only in a bunch of trouble when it comes to their overall culture, I would say, in their studios. It looks like, especially this year, they're having problems with sales and their brands, essentially. So, I guess, Zero, what do you think about Tencent looking to purchase Ubisoft? I guess from Yves Guillemot and getting controlling stakes on Ubisoft.
Anything, I potentially see this as a golden parachute option for Yves Guillemot, mostly
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact that just um, there's a bit of a history lesson with Ubisoft. So, um, Ubisoft, Gameloft, and one other company, they were all GMO family-owned companies, and Vivendi had been on this like wild acquisition tear to basically just tear the empire apart, and they managed to get one of the other companies in this little like trinity, and then Gameloft was the next to fall.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much Ubisoft was the last holdout, and And pretty much when there was talk of Vivendi after the sale of Activision were looking to acquire Ubisoft, Ubisoft did this humongous fundraising drive of basically saying, hey, we want to be free, we want to be able to do our own thing, we don't want to be controlled by Vivendi. Please do, if you have any heart, please save us from Vivendi because they've ruined one of our family's past enterprises, referring to Gameloft at the
Hmm.
time, and and it was basically just sort of a sympathetic plea for investors. And naturally, they got out of it and got to have the autonomy of being their own company. But with the more recent years that have gone through, the number of members of the GMO family that have been working for Ubisoft have started to dwindle and dwindle further and further away.
Hmm.
And I think at this rate, um, CEO Yves GMO is literally the last person of the GMO family that owns Ubisoft,
Hmm.
because his son Charlie, I think last year, ended up having to step down due to some sexual harassment claims, though Charlie has gone on to found a crypto company, which that's got its own issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the way I see it is this is a potentially a golden parachute option for Yeast GMO. He can basically just sell his shares off to Tencent because I believe he's got the controlling interest at this time. So he could just sell his off and just wash his hands of the company and then just kind of do sort of a ivory tower style tour around the world and talk to gaming publication articles of and stuff and just kind of wax romantic about just the good old days of when he was at Ubisoft and everything and just kind of quietly retire with minimal grief and everything. And then if sexual harassment claims come out about the staff that have decided to remain at Ubisoft, he can just kind of wax romantic and go, "Wow, that wasn't what happened when I was at Ubisoft." So
Yeah.
that's my take on it.
Ubisoft has had so many issues in the past 5 years. Starting, we'll start with the culture, the sexual harassment issues, and the boys' club mentality they had throughout their time in the past 5 years, and then that trickled down to the creative process in a lot of their games, where a lot of people started noticing that a lot of their games felt the same, whether you played Far Cry or Assassin's Creed or even The Crew 2, which I thought was hilarious when I heard about that. Yeah, like Ubisoft is in a bit of trouble right now. Like they just for the past year. I mean, the last game I remember them releasing wasn't Far Cry 6, and that kind of disappointed. I think it ended up making its sales back in its in what do you call it in its budget, but I don't think it made big sales that they were expecting. So
Yeah,
that
that and I think it was a bit underwhelming too,
yeah,
critically.
right. So yeah, you're looking at a studio that essentially, I think it's fair to say this, that is creatively bankrupt, and they have games now that, I mean, they just canceled a bunch of games recently. They have two games have been that are constantly delayed. That is Beyond Good and Evil 2, and of all things, the Prince of Persia remake, the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake, which, yeah, I was looking forward to until all this, all these delays started happening. I'm like, wait a minute, you're just remaking the game. What could be so intensive? Like, okay, but yeah, like you're right. They might just be looking. Guillermo might be just looking to get out from under the mess that is Ubisoft right now, and just get himself away so someone else can deal with the mess. Now, if that's the case, and Ubisoft is in complete disarray, wouldn't that venture to say that the person who or people who decide to purchase it are probably going to pretty much strip of it of its licenses to a certain extent? But
Yeah.
even thinking about that, except for maybe Far Cry and Assassin's Creed, what licenses do they have that will be that attractive to somebody to, let's say, purchase Ubisoft for billions of dollars and then take the licenses and hope to make better games out of it from other studios? Like, I have a hard time seeing that too. So even with Ubisoft like looking to to get bought out supposedly, and Tencent supposedly trying to do that, I'm not sure what Tencent really wants. I mean, do they want to just build the studios back up to what they were, and to have a more creative process to make better games? Because that really isn't Tencent's MO. Tencent's MO is basically monetize until we can't get enough money anymore, and then shut down. That's their MO. So I don't see specifically, like, if Tencent buys them, I would, unless they get them pretty cheaply, I don't see this being a good thing for Ubisoft or people who work at Ubisoft. I think you're going to see massive layoffs, and you're going to see a stripping of the brands, and then suddenly you'll see Far Cry on mobile in the next couple of years, is what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say, I could easily see Tencent monetizing Assassin's Creed into a mobile game easily. Just
Mhm.
I could see something like, hey, let's do kind of like what we did when we localized PUBG, just turn into Assassin's Creed the Battle Royale game.
Yeah. I mean, but they're doing a free to play Assassin's Creed right now. I mean, they're going to announce it, I think, next month, which is September, in a
Yeah,
live stream that it's called Assassin's Creed Infinity. I think it's what it's called, and that's going to be free to play. That could be a mobile game too. But I just have a. I guess I'm not seeing exactly why a company would spend billions of dollars on Ubisoft when they are essentially a distressed asset, where you could possibly get them, unless you're getting them cheaper than you think. Then I don't see a big payoff for Guillermo. I essentially see this being a yeah. I think if he wants to get out bad enough, he might take a cheap, like, make a discounted sell off to get rid of the company, unless of course the board says otherwise. But yeah, I don't know. Like, should they probably sell? Yes, but I don't see one Tencent really being the one that could do a lot with it, or two, if Tencent does it, it being a good thing for the company itself. I would honestly see Ubisoft pretty much turning into a farming house of its IPs, and that's it. I don't see Tencent saying, okay, here's another $1 billion. Go ahead and start making games. You guys are set for the next 5 years. No, I see them basically saying, okay, you're shut down, you're shut down, you're shut down, you're shut down, and you three that are still here, start making mobile Assassin's Creed and Rayman games.
I think I may have worded just Yves Guillemot trying to sell off things in an inarticulate way, but yeah, just
Yeah.
I would say the idea of selling it for a discount is probably a little bit more closer to aligning to what I was thinking. Just
Okay.
you might just go, I don't want to deal with this controversy anymore. I hate just seeing my name being slapped on pretty much every single controversial article on just why we at Ubisoft have a sexual harassment culture, a bad nepotism problem. Just fuck this, I want out, and
Yeah.
just selling for a real quick discount and just going, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
He pulled a notch. Essentially, he's gonna pull a notch. Essentially, say, I'm sick and fucking tired of this. Someone buy me, and they're hoping for a Microsoft kind of sweetheart deal where he gets billions of dollars.
Interesting thing to see will be just how this all shakes down.
Yeah. We'll move on. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about John Riccitiello and Unity and the 300 IQ quote that he gave when it came to developers and monetization. We also talked about that they're going to merge with a company called Iron Source, which had a very dubious and checkered past. Well, it looks like another company is looking to outright purchase Unity, and that is called AppLovin, which is a terrible fucking name, by the way. I just want to add that. Yeah, so they're looking to purchase Unity, and if they do succeed in doing so, that would invalidate the merger between Unity and Iron Source. So then AppLovin would pretty much have controlling stake of Unity. I know you have a lot more information about this than I do, so why don't you go ahead and talk about what your feelings are when it comes to AppLovin looking to acquire Unity.
Yeah. As far as things go, for anyone who needs a reminder, Iron Source, the Iron Source deal was to the price of $4.4 billion.
Yes.
This AppLovin deal is going to be at a whopping $17.5 billion.
Oh, so that'll go through.
Yeah. So
Yep.
this is 4 times the asking price for the Iron Source deal.
Yeah.
And granted, AppLovin isn't as terrible as Iron Source, but they're still pretty bad looking because they are a company that focuses on market analysis, monetization analysis, and just doing app publishing via mobile advertising, and just they've got some things that are really invasive. So just while this deal is not as bad as Iron Source, Iron Source has been known to make some just outright malicious apps that masquerade themselves as doing antivirus, anti-spyware sort of stuff, but just filling your phone or your system full of advertisements. So granted, this is a little bit better than Iron Source, but just AppLovin is still pretty bad as far as things go, and it just looks like they're going really hard on this whole. We need to be able to analyze what Unity users are playing and all this other stuff. So yeah, I just don't like this, mostly from sort of a computer security standpoint.
Yeah. So okay. Obviously, if AppLovin is going to give 4 times the amount that Iron Source is or Iron Source wasn't a purchase; it was a merger, right? So,
Yeah.
I see this pretty much happening, and it'll probably take a year, and then it'll be finalized. I guess the only question I really have on this is, what does this mean for the Unity platform? Is this going to be what is AppLovin specifically? Is it just an app? What is the business model itself?
Essentially, they're a Iron Source competitor, so they do just analysis of what their users are doing, what apps that they're playing with on their phone,
Okay.
and all sorts of stuff. So essentially, yeah, they're still in the same business as Iron Source, just
Okay.
in sort of a different way.
Okay. So basically, this seems like it seems like if you're gonna have a multi-billion-dollar business, and you want these businesses to coexist, purchasing one of them is probably a good move, because not only are you going to have the app structure, the structure to create these apps that will feed into your data collection, you're going to also have all the information you need to make those things more efficiently. So yeah, I mean, that in itself makes sense. What is the reputation of Unity itself? I think the platform itself is good. I've heard. It does have kind of a bad reputation with some gamers as being chintzy and cheap, which is not fair at all. But yeah, I don't see this being something that, unless people really want to go into a deep rabbit hole about it, that they're gonna think this is a terrible thing, that Unity is being bought off. And this actually might help Unity actually improve its tools and its platform. So hey, that's a good thing too. I'm just I guess just because of what AppLovin does, you're kind of miffed at this sale. Is that what this is?
Yeah, because it just seems like they want to go into sort of invasive market and usage analytics,
Mm-hmm.
and just that for me gets into the thorny realm of privacy.
Oh yeah.
But that's personally my thought on it. But again, just um, my opinion is more from the background of what I do for my day job, which is
Right.
just IT and information security.
Right. I mean, this was just announced. We're nowhere near at the point where this is going to get finalized. So, yeah. I mean, if this ends up being, I would say for developers, this might be nothing but a good thing for you. But, yeah, I mean, if this is a shady company and they start using information from all these apps in a malicious way, that could be terrible. But we can't do anything about it now until we find it. So, yeah, that sucks. But yeah, I just at this point, nothing much to talk about with this. It's just that it's happening, and it will likely to happen. And
Yeah,
could
the
this?
Iron Source contract is definitely going to be invalidated because the shareholders in Unity are going to say, no, you got to cancel that deal and you got to go for this one because big numbers go big.
Yeah, uh, Epic Games, the ones that do the Unreal Engine. What is what is their worth? Let me find out real quick. Um, as of 2020, 5.1 billion. Oh, nope, I'm wrong. Last funding round in 2021, 28.7 billion. Huh. My next question was going to be whether they would get bought. I don't see that happening. I don't see any company doing that. But especially since they have a store that they're trying to cultivate. So, yeah. It could look like that Unity might become a bigger competitor to Epic, I guess, in the short term, I guess. So, anything more to add?
No, just I'll be kind of curious on how this deal finalizes, especially just once we find out a little bit more on AppLovin and just what exactly they're all about.
Okay. Okay. All right, Zero. So, our next topic, of course, if you are a fan of our podcast, either you watch us on YouTube or you have us on the podcast feed. If you are, thank you, of course. We also know that we do a movie podcast, and as someone who is a purveyor of fine Asian cinema, I know for a fact that you're a fan of the Sonic movie franchise. That counts, right? I mean, Sonic the
No.
Hedgehog is a Japanese is technically a Japanese game, so that counts, right?
No.
No, what? Not enough karate for you? Is that the problem? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll stop. Okay. In all seriousness, yeah. So it was announced a couple days ago that a third Sonic movie was being made. That was already known since the second Sonic movie did very well in theaters. It has been confirmed, and the date is Christmas of 2024, which would then pit it up against the Avatar sequel that's going to be released around the same time. I guess really the questions I have is twofold. One, what do you think about a third Sonic movie? And two, what other gaming properties do you think is going to end up doing, is going to go this route of being a brand that turns it into like a movie franchise? 'Cause we have Super Mario that's going to come out this year that we still know nothing about, of course. But what do you think is going to happen if Sonic continues to be as successful as it's been?
Likely the movie partnership with Paramount is probably going to continue as
Hmm.
long as the success is there. Um, I will make the disclosure that I have seen the first movie. I thought the first movie was a fun kids movie,
Yeah.
but um, it was nothing super special or, to write about, to say the least. I've not had a chance to see the second one, but as a big Jim Carrey fan, I'm hoping at some point that either it goes on sale for cheap or it's just maybe a freebie rental from Google Play or something. Just who knows? But yeah, just would love to just take a crack at the second Sonic movie and just see how that is as a movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, just um, it's kind of interesting to see Sonic find its success there, especially just with how the games have been so mismanaged
Yeah.
so badly. The only one that has been great in recent memory was Sonic Mania, and that was more sort of um, a love letter ROM hack that was officially sanctioned by Sega.
Yeah.
So just uh, it's a bit sad for me, especially as someone who quite loved the original Sonic trilogy and the Sonic and Knuckles expansion stuff, uh, and also somebody who did love Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. So just it's a little sad to see the games in a very sorry shape, but at the same time, it's a little bit heartwarming to see just um, kids these days having a blast of a time with the Sonic movies. So just it's a little bit of a bittersweet situation, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah. I'm like you. I saw the first one and thought it's an okay kids movie. I mean, it is what it is. It had a very kid friendly Jim Carrey, which was fine. But when I think Jim Carrey, I think Liar Liar. I think Ace Ventura. Immature but with some adult themes. So not something I'm interested in, but fine. It was perfectly serviceable. I haven't seen the second one like you, so I guess we're gonna have to watch that for the movie club at one point. We have now confirmed that that's gonna happen. Uh, but yeah, uh, I'm not particularly surprised, of course, that this is happening. Um, and it just goes to show, like, how weirdly powerful the brand of Sonic is, because you're right on one thing. Like, even people who like Sonic games have not liked the output of the previous Sonic games in the past, I don't know, 20 years. I mean, I think I hear most people, with the exception of Sonic Mania, saying the last Sonic game that was good was Sonic Adventure 2, and even that wasn't so hot. So, and that's me talking, of course, me who is not a Sonic fan. So but like, yeah, like it is weird that a brand has endured so long, even though it really hasn't had many quality things from its brand. I mean, well, the cartoons are looked upon fondly, I think, right?
Oh
Not
yeah,
and the
because
com
you had Jaleel White, who played the voice of Sonic in a lot of the cartoons as well too.
right. And then the comics I hear were pretty popular at some point as well. So they might have just built up their brand, funnily enough, through those more than through the games. And the games are kind of an afterthought. So that is weird that something, because usually if you have one or two bad games, the brand is finished. I mean, look at Skylanders. Skylanders had one game that did not sell well, and then it's toast. Like, you don't hear about Skylanders anymore. It's done. So yeah, I'm I'm particularly surprised by the popularity of Sonic constantly because of the quality that comes out and just how everlasting the brand is. Whereas to what other brands that could do something like this? I mean, of course, Super Mario is one, and that's if the Super Mario movie turns out to be pretty good. hopefully don't take itself too seriously, but we'll see when that road comes. What other brands would actually work as like a Sonic style movie? Do you have anything in mind? Since I'm drawing blanks.
Yeah, that one's hard for me, especially since just
Oh, got one.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
one has had a pretty good reputation, especially with um, Crash 4 being quite loved as well too.
right. And Activision, if they see potential dollar signs, I wouldn't be surprised if they turn around to a studio like, I don't know, Warner Brothers, and say, hey, why don't we develop a Crash movie and we'll use your animation house to create a whole new Crash movie? We have this many sales off of this many years, and it's an everlasting brand that we have that will be great. Or, hell, why not Skylanders? And then release a Skylanders game again. Maybe not Toys for Life Skylanders, but release a Skylanders game. So that's a possibility. Uh,
Yeah, honestly, I'm just coming up with a blank. I just cannot think of anything that would be sort of kid friendly and just make
well,
for a great movie.
does it necessarily have to be kid friendly? I mean, Mortal Kombat just had a rated R. I haven't seen the one though, but they had a rated R movie that came out in 2019, I believe, that I think got okay reviews and okay buzz. And they're making a sequel of that since it sold fairly well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a kids movie. I mean, well, you could make a family-friendly Legend of Zelda movie, I think. You'd have to
Yeah,
explain to parents that Zelda is not the main character, but I digress. But, that's a possibility.
yeah. And also just the expectation would have to be made that just um, the Zelda series does have its own themes of cyclical things that are just part of a cycle, but also there are supposedly three timelines and everything. So just that one, I think, unfortunately, would get needlessly complicated. But that's my take on it.
I don't think you'd have to even address that. I think
Yeah,
you would
I mean, it
just
could be its own continuum too,
right.
kind of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff.
Right, absolutely. Or like in all honesty, I mean, you could just say, "Here's Link, here's Zelda, here's Ganon. It's set in Hyrule," and then do whatever the hell else you want to do. I mean, but I don't think that's exactly what Nintendo would like, since the original Super Mario Brothers movie and how terrible that was for them when that came out. But you could essentially do that to a certain extent. I mean, like, I don't know, Splatoon, maybe. I mean, Splatoon, despite it just being more known for a multiplayer shooter type game, has what could be called like a cutesy, kind of good story about resistance and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
you,
Resistance and the Octopod conspiracy.
yeah,
So
you could make something out of that. Like, I think Nintendo has a buttload of brands that they can do that with. They can make them into cartoons. Castlevania. Like Castlevania has what do you call it? An anime on Netflix, and that's fairly popular. That could be enough for Konami to say, why not make a movie and it'll star, I don't know, Channing Tatum? I don't know. Who cares? Give me money.
yeah,
That's Konami.
actually, there is one thought that, but this would be completely moonshot territory.
Okay.
But I think just the potential for something interesting would be very much there. A Fire Emblem movie that's just got a lot of political intrigue.
Yeah, absolutely. That would work for a series. Like if like HBO Max or well, WB Discovery or Netflix would say, "Hey, we want to make a season of Fire Emblem." That could work absolutely. It would have to, I would say it would have to be the Three Houses game. It probably wouldn't be the Marth and Ike kind of Fire Emblem, since they don't really have much of it. They have a story, but I don't think it's in depth enough where they could make an epic kind of Game of Thrones style series with. But you could do that.
Yeah, with Three Houses, I could see it being sort of more of a Harry Potter sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That could work. God, man, what else? I mean, and we're talking specifically brands that would make sequels upon sequels or TV shows. We could go into like just single games. Why not make an animated Inside? You know,
Yeah.
that could work. Someone could be stupid enough to well, maybe not stupid enough, but maybe someone would have an idea to make a Stardew Valley movie, because Stardew Valley is apparently a now really big brand that is popular. That could Animal Crossing, for God's sake. You can make a
Yeah.
cutesy Animal Crossing cartoon. I mean, that is a definite possibility. And this sounds like a dig, but honestly, and for people who get insulted by this, okay, you kind of did to yourself. Gamers really don't care about artistic merit to a certain extent, especially if you have the conversation of games as art. They automatically balk and go, ugh, why can't it just be fun? Like, and you can get like whatever it is out of it. As long as it's fun. I don't think they it's funny. They do care if you change it enough, but if you change it enough where it's still fun, they kind of don't care. So, like, if you make a Metroid movie, and let's say Ridley is not the main, what do you call it, the main villain, like, would it really matter? Maybe. I don't know. But as long as you make it fun and good and pew pew and you shoot things and Samus Aran is cool yet attractive, you can easily do that. My God, Nintendo has so many brands that can make movies.
Yes, they do.
Oh my God. Holy shit. Like, they could easily take their brands and make movies out of it and never make a game again. It's what my thought process is. Maybe they should go third party. I don't know.
Nah, just I think their sort of Disney-like approach is doing them fine, and
Absolutely.
just they're very, very conservative with their money. So just um, I don't want to overstate how strong they are at everything, but I would say that, yeah, even if the gaming industry did have a bit of a recession, yeah, they could probably take a break and just do movie stuff for a little bit to kind of recoup things for a bit, and then when gaming gets strong again, hey, by the way, boom, we've got a video game, play it.
Yeah, well, Nintendo specifically can do that, absolutely. I don't know about Sega, to be completely honest. Sega might, well, they're third party, so they might be able to do it. I mean, we did talk about a while back that they were looking to option Persona. I don't know what talks came from that, and if anything bore fruit, but, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, this, honestly, like this, for a gaming company specifically, might not be a bad idea. Like, if you would just turn around and say, hey, here's my property, make a movie out of it, and make it good, please, and then you're set. I mean, that would... I'm betting a lot of publishers are thinking that right now and going, we need to do that somehow, like now. So, back to Ubisoft, though. Like, Ubisoft had Assassin's Creed, and they had a really good actor playing the main character, and it just was garbage. Just absolute fucking garbage. So...
Yeah. And I think they do have a few Rabbids movies out.
Yeah,
So,
they have a Far Cry movie too. That was straight to
yeah,
DVD. So yeah.
so they've definitely got some options here and there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be a smart idea for these companies to go multimedia and decide on what properties they have and start making movies out of it. Make a Blinks the Cat movie, god damn it. Yes, Microsoft, get on it. All right, Zero. Well, this is, of course, the end of the podcast, but before we go, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, so EA essentially put out a PR statement or had a quote on some article that basically said that single-player games are still important to their portfolio. Okay? This wasn't enough for a story, so we didn't really cover it, but I'm going to cover it here. Yeah, Zero, question is, honestly, are single-player games still important to the gaming industry?
For me, I want to say that single player games are important to an artistic aspect. Um,
Okay.
especially
Yeah.
um, with Nintendo stuff in particular. They have just turned single player games into such a fine craft.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, granted, their games aren't the hardest. Their games um, aren't just like something to wow you over with like a absolutely magical experience um, to the vein of like Elden Ring or whatever. But Nintendo games tend to be art from the fact that they're just easily accessible to everyone. Everyone can play them, and everyone can therefore just get to talking about them and sharing their experiences with their fellow friends and family and whatnots.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I kind of see the importance of single player games, that you can make them very accessible to the masses, and just at that point you can easily build brand loyalty from that, and that's what we see from Nintendo. But on the opposite end, you also have extremely difficult games that emphasize the struggle, that you need to struggle as a human being to see your struggles bear fruit towards the end, and that's seen in games like Bloodborne, Demon Souls, um, the more recent Elden Ring. So just you've got games like that that really just kind of focus on your human involvement in the struggle and putting your own emotions and investing them into this single player world and
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Right. Um, yeah, like artistically, yes, absolutely, they're still important. Fan wise and satisfying gamers who have been used to playing single player games all their lives, yes, very important. But I'm talking more along the business side of the gaming industry, and I honestly, I honestly think that no, it really isn't important to a certain extent, unless you can get gobs of DLC from the single player game. It's not vitally important to people in the gaming industry, really, because they want to. Because the industry now is all about games with a shelf life that you can constantly monetize and constantly engage with people to play it. With maybe the exception of Genshin Impact, the rest of the games are all multiplayer games. So we're talking Fortnite, we're talking Warzone, we're talking, let's say, Destiny. We're talking like those games. Like those are the more important games that companies are going to invest so much money into making the best that they can make in order to make much more money. So now, do I think that single player games are going to go away? No, because you still want to have the credibility of making those types of games. But I think as time wears on, less and less games are going to be those single player games. I think you're going to see a lot more of, let's say, the mid-tier companies or basically companies spending less and less money on those games to create them, with maybe exceptions to like well-known properties like Devil May Cry, or maybe like a Star Wars brand to have a single-player game. That they'll do that with those, or Final Fantasy. I think those are going to be the exceptions, and the rule is going to be when it comes to spending like a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money, it's going to be towards multiplayer games, and that's it. The single-player games will have much smaller budgets, and if they have no multiplayer at all, it's going to be even smaller than that. artistically, yes, it'll always be important, and it will always be there. And even bigger companies that said the quiet part out loud, like EA did years ago, um, they're still going to make single player games, because how else are you going to have these studios cut their teeth into making like concepts of certain games to see if they'll work in a multiplayer environment? In regards to like it being the big tentpole games, I think Elden Ring will be. Well, Elden Ring is multiplayer to an extent too, so that kind of doesn't count. But I think in 5 to 10 years, the big budget single player games without multiplayer is gonna die. Is gonna be gone soon. They're not gonna go away. It's just that when someone spends an ass load of money on a Last of Us, they're gonna require it to have multiplayer. And I know some are going to say, but what about God of War? Yeah, there are going to be exceptions because they have a legacy behind them. But for the most part, they're going to be multiplayer. Is my take on it.
Yeah, and I would say that's going to be likely with just where the gaming business is going. Just they want something that is going to basically have an infinite revenue stream. And believe me, for anyone who's listening to us, I know it probably pains you all to hear it, but
right.
I just have this gut feeling that just that's where the gaming business is right now. They're just going to say, "Hey, can this particular IP or franchise bring in infinite revenue?" And if the answer is no, then they're just gonna turn their nose up on it like it's a steaming pile of shit and go, "Well, fuck that. I don't want any part to do with this.
Yeah,
I refuse." And then just the dreamy-eyed game developer who wants to make a single-player game is just going to be turned away.
right.
Now, if something absolutely catastrophic happens to the gaming industry, that they go, okay, so people are sick of mono gaming on multiplayer games. I guess back to high art and great single-player experiences. If that happens, who knows?
Yeah, and I've predicted that will probably happen if the government regulates the industry to a certain extent, but that will be the only time when it happens. Unless a lot of companies go Genshin Impact style and say, hey, we're going to make this awesome single-player game with gacha elements, so instead of going into a chest and getting a weapon, you go into a chest, get currency, and then you use that currency to spin a wheel, and hopefully you'll get the good sword. I think that for big budget games, I think that's the route they'll go. And I know some of you are going to say, but Sony, they have Spider-Man, Wolverine, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us. Yeah, but that's different, because Sony wants you to buy their system. They are more interested in you buying their system. The games, unless the game sells terribly, the game selling well is ancillary to them buying systems. So they're going to spend gobs and gobs of money on those games specifically to get people like you to purchase their system. That is the key thing, for you to purchase the PlayStation. That's what they're doing. Same thing Microsoft is doing with Starfield. They're going to fund that, and they're going to put more money into it because there are hardcore gamers who want that game, and it will sell systems. That is the only time where I think that it will happen. But if we're talking EA, Ubisoft, like those companies specifically, Take-Two, without multiplayer or some kind of microtransaction that they can get out of it, yeah, these single player games are dying, and that's it. Like that's likely the end. You'll still get your indie games, and you'll still get like your I hate using this term, single A and double A games that will be single player only, and you'll be able to enjoy them, and that's great. But I think the time of an EA spending like millions of and upon millions of dollars on an RPG is over. That's not happening anymore. So unless you're, again, Square Enix, who has Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, and that's their legacy, and because they have that built-in legacy, they're guaranteed sales, then they'll do it. But other than that, no, that's not going to happen. Like you're never going to see Square Enix saying, "Hey, we're making a massive budget new JRPG." No, they're not going to do that. They're either going to make it another Final Fantasy game, or they're going to make it into a multiplayer game.
Or just, I think really, as much as it pains me to say it, just
Yeah, me too.
just I hate where a lot of the video game business is going, which is just, hey, how much money can we drain out of the users' wallets before they realize that we've duped them?
Yeah,
And I hate being cynical about that sort of stuff, but at the same time, just I hate also saying this, but just video games being so financially driven right now,
oh yeah,
it's just where the business is going, and it really hurts for me to see that, especially when you just have games that forcibly shoehorn in multiplayer, and the multiplayer just doesn't feel good. And
yeah,
I think one of the best examples of this was the 2013 reboot of Tomb Raider. Just fantastic single player adventure game, but that multiplayer game, good lord, it was the worst.
yeah.
Just did not feel good, was not fun to play, and just absolutely an awful time.
Mass Effect was another example. Mass Effect 3 that had the multiplayer that
Yes,
just
it did.
didn't make much sense when it was out. It was like, why are you doing this? This is weird. But yeah, there's that. But to be fair, that has less and less been an issue since I think a lot of companies who did it basically saw that, oh, no one's interested in this, so why bother? And they just scrap those. Like that's been less and less of an issue. So yeah, but you're right. Like that is unfortunate. This business is so business and finance oriented that the quote unquote artistic merit doesn't matter. Like they are so risk adverse, these gaming companies, that essentially if you do one thing that could cause enough of a problem, they'll scrap it or they'll change it. Like look at the ending to Mass Effect 3, for example. How they had to change the ending after it was released because so many people were pissed. I mean, to me, if it were me, I know I'm not the creator. I'm not the creator. Whatever. I would have said, "That's the ending. That's it. It's over." I mean, I understand you're pissed, but that's the ending. That's my vision, and that's it. Done. That'd be like someone saying, "I don't like the ending of the movie. Change it," and then they do a cut of the movie where they change the ending drastically. That would be so stupid to do. Like I just ugh. But yeah, like these companies want money so bad that they are willing to not take risks, and this is the genesis of it. Like, oh, so we'll get more money doing this. Do the thing that makes more money. That's it. That's all it is. And it's going to take a crash or something for that to change. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, Zero. Well, on that note, that'll be the end of this podcast, of the Capital Games podcast. Tune in next week till we discuss the happenings and going-ons of the video game industry. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
And we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.